But first, the Trump administration continues to fire and criticize federal employees across the country. Here's Trump speaking to a joint session of Congress last night.
We have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again.
Washington Post fact-checkers say that claim is false and that the president appears to be saying remote workers are no-shows. Some Democratic lawmakers took a stand against mass layoffs by inviting fired federal workers to Trump's speech last night. And those layoffs, well, they're being felt in our area. We're joined by three people who were recently let go from the Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie, which is southwest of Chicago. Abbey Hays was a youth program coordinator. Siobhan Solkowski-Peacy was an interpretive specialist in the educational department. And Erick Ignaczak was the facilities operations specialist. Thank you all for joining us in studio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
First, I got to start off by saying I'm very sorry for what's happened to you.
Thank you.
I know this is a tough time, so I appreciate you making the time to be here to talk with us.
We got plenty of time.
I hear you. Well, let's start with you, Abby. Tell me how you're feeling.
I'm not feeling great. I was just starting out my career. I'm only 27, so this was my first professional job, and I only got a year and a half in before it was just taken away from me with no options of what I could do next. So, not feeling great.
That's tough. Iggy.
My sentiment is mostly anger, not just for myself, but everyone involved at our unit and everyone else that's going through this, because this is completely undeserved. We all showed, positive work situations, and to be told that we're being fired for poor performance is just not real.
That's what you were told, that you were being let go because your performance wasn't up to par?
Yeah, that was boilerplate for everyone that was let go.
And that's not true?
That's absolutely not
true. In your
true.
case?
Correct.
How did that feel to hear that?
Very disappointing. And, of course, this doesn't come from our direct supervisors either. They're the ones that had to let us go, but it is not them that is telling us that we did a bad job. It is above them. It's coming from the top. It's coming from the administration.
Siobhan, what's on your mind?
Well, I was going on 11 years, and I had a few years left to go before I picked my next adventure. But for me, I was hoping to have the insurance, and that's the hard part for me. But the other part is as the kids. I worked with kids, and not being able to do that is really hard, to leave them in the lurch. Now, I know they're trying to pick up the pieces, but the whole education department was fired where we work.
Yeah.
So just because you know a subject or have gone to school doesn't mean you make a good teacher.
You and Abby both worked in the education section of things, right?
Yes.
Tell me more about how you were told that you were getting fired, Siobhan.
We heard on Friday that one of our colleagues got fired, and we knew it was going to start happening because even though I've been there for a while, every time you transfer to a position, you're on probation for either 1 or 2 years. And so that's, even though I was there for a long time, that's what had happened to me. Then we knew that weekend it was coming, and we were getting calls from the supervisor of our facility, but I didn't want to take the call on a day off. So I got called on Monday, and I knew who it was, and I didn't want to get fired on
You just
my
had
day
a
off.
feeling that that's what that call was.
Oh, we all knew what it was because they were just going down the line and calling people throughout the weekend. So I knew on Tuesday that would be my last day.
Preserve your weekend at all costs, right?
Yes.
Yes. Abby, what did it look like for you?
For me, it was on a Saturday, so I was enjoying.
So you answered the call.
I answered the call because I just wanted to know, and I think that was the worst part in all of it, was just kind of waiting for these verdicts, was waiting for this, decision to be made. And even though it was my Saturday, I wanted to enjoy the rest of my weekend knowing what my fate was. So yeah, I picked up the phone, and our site supervisor, she was very gracious, and she made sure that we knew what we needed to know and that she was there if we had questions. But it was very clear that this was not her. This was not her calling us and telling us that she was firing us. This was something that was completely out of her hands.
Iggy, you watched President Trump's address last night.
I did.
What'd you think?
He
had a lot to say.
I wish I didn't, because none of it was true, and it's just interfering, hearing all that.
What did you think about the showing of other fired federal workers?
It's important for all of those individuals to be seen, because we're all around us. We're around everyone. Obviously, most people don't realize that there's a Forest Service situation near Chicago. We are here. We're all part of this. We need to be seen and heard.
Abby, you told our producer that you were choosing not to watch Trump's address. Did you stick to that?
I did stick to that.
Yeah. Why?
Well, ultimately, I had laundry to do. But I just didn't really want to listen to this person that chose to lie to me directly, lie to all of my coworkers, lie to everybody that this is affecting, and it's just going to continue.
Yeah.
And it's going to end up being felt by everybody, not just federal workers, not just institutions, but private companies, nonprofits, everything like that. And I can't listen to someone who's making these decisions based on their own personal agenda and ego and just go about my day after that. So
Siobhan, Abby brings up a good point, right? Of the stark impact of this, right? This is impacting a wave of agencies. You talked earlier just about the ripple effect within just your department. How have you been processing these actions by DOGE? Just mass federal firings, just like that.
For some reason, I started out with someone I knew at WGN Radio, one of the hosts there, and she had me on. And then phone numbers kept getting dropped in my lap. So I've been doing interviews with reporters for different agencies, as other people have been too. And so I just keep doing that. I'm struggling to figure out insurance for myself and my husband, struggling to, work through the unemployment and just do, the regular daily things you do. But you're on the phone for a lot of the time, just sitting and waiting, so it takes more time than you realize it's going to take.
Having to make different phone calls to get yourself sorted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why are you choosing to do all these media interviews? Why share your story?
If I don't, who will? And people don't seem to know that we're actually, we're not getting severance. We weren't poor workers. We were all doing our jobs very hard every day, okay? And just because there's a resignation option doesn't mean that you're going to actually receive that money that they're promising you.
How many people were fired at Midewin, Iggy?
It was about a third of us. It was
Okay.
12 or 13.
12 or 13. Now, you were just talking to me right before we got on air about some breaking news you heard.
Yeah, breaking news. Just as as we sat down, announcement that the USDA is being forced to rehire approximately 5,000 people. Whether we're in that list or not, we have no idea. We just heard about it. But this has been the situation the entire time. No one knows what's happening until they get the email, until they get the call.
How confusing is that, Abby?
it's extremely confusing. And it just, in a world where professionalism is very highly regarded and things are like, we all follow what is called a chain of command. When we are told to do something, it needs to be told to us from our direct supervisor. That is the way that we function as federal employees. It's very, regimented. It's kind of military-esque, but it has its purpose. And so now our supervisors don't know what's going on. Our site supervisors, even the chief of the Forest Service, doesn't always know what is going on. And so we can't get those answers, yet, it'll come out in the media or it'll come out in some, Facebook post,
and you'll learn like everyone else.
Yeah, and it's disorienting, and it makes me it just makes me feel like what I was doing didn't matter as much.
So with that in mind, would you even want to go back?
I would have to. I wouldn't have choice, but I would want to continue my work, but it would leave a sour taste in my mouth to do this work for an administration that doesn't respect me.
What do you think, Siobhan? How do you feel about that? The uncertainty.
There's uncertainty in life, but they're making more than they have to. We don't have to be uncertain about these things. I mean, for me, figuring out insurance, and for everybody else, we're not terminated as far as the HR people are going. They don't have any record to say when we're totally done by. They know we were fired.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't sort things because there's nothing official come down.
So like paperwork hasn't been done yet?
Nope. And it's not just the Forest Service, it's other agencies, federal agencies too.
So what is everyone doing now? Are you in touch with your former colleagues, Iggy?
I am in touch with former colleagues. We are our news source on this. lot of hands, a lot of fingers out in every direction trying to get any bit of information we can. I'm getting more information from Reddit, ironically enough, than anywhere else.
Really?
There's a strong community discussing all the woes, but all the people that we should be reaching out to, the agencies that are supporting us, the unions that are trying to help us out. That's the best way that we're getting all the information right now. Because like I said, even our direct supervisors don't know. When I was terminated, I was actually on vacation.
Really?
I called my direct supervisor on Friday afternoon, and it's like, hey, do I still have a job when I come back on Tuesday? He says, yes. Less than 24 hours later, I get the call that I am dismissed. This is the day after Valentine's Day. I was taking advantage of the President's weekend to maximize my vacation time.
Yeah.
Of course, that was taken away. That vacation day was taken away from us as well. But yeah, that's how we're getting all our information, and it's not coming from our immediate folks because they know as little as we do.
If you're just tuning in, this is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons, and we are hearing from terminated federal employees in Illinois. This is in response to the mass layoffs that are happening from the White House and from DOGE. And in studio, we've got Abbey Hays, who was a youth program coordinator who organized the Youth Conservation Corps at Midewin. We've also got Siobhan Solkowski-Peacy, who is an interpretive specialist in the educational department, and Iggy Ignaczak, who was the facilities operations specialist there. Now, tell me more about the Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie, Siobhan, especially for those who aren't fully familiar.
Okay, so Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie was, there was a law that was enacted, signed in 1996, the Land Conservation Act. And this turned what was the Joliet Army Ammunition Plant into, it was surplus land for the federal government. It was turned into Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie. Midewin is a word that means, it's from the Potawatomi Indians. It is still a healing society. We asked permission to use it because we wanted to heal the land, and they gave us permission. So it's been around for about 29 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's about 18,000 acres large, the largest expanse of wildland in northern Illinois, connected to other areas like the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, other forest preserves. So it's a big piece of land, and it will take a long time to turn back into prairie.
Yeah.
But before they did that, they had to remove a lot of infrastructure from the arsenal. So there are about 34 miles of trails. We have an app for self-guided tours. We have a herd of bison.
Is that what that was?
That was bison.
Abby just gave
yeah.
you a little
in
signal there.
2015, that we got a herd of bison.
Gotcha.
So basically, I mean, we're there for this is public land for
Yeah.
people to use and come see, and we do all kinds of programs and events, and we actually go away from Midewin to tell people about us and do things for them
Right.
outside too.
Yeah, and you were on that education team, as I mentioned. Abby, talk more about why the education programs are so important.
Our education programs were incredibly important. I mean, I was telling your producer that before me and two of my other colleagues, one my supervisor and one my coworker, when we were brought on a year and a half ago, Siobhan was the only person doing any education at all. I mean, there were other people helping her, but you know, this was her job, and so she was carrying that weight all by herself. And then all of a sudden, 3 other people show up and start doing everything else. And by the time that we were all let go, because we were all let go at the same time, the whole education team, by the time we were let go, our outreach had grown so much. We were reaching so many new populations.
Last year, we reached well over 9,000 people just
Yeah.
at outside events.
Yes.
So then what happens now with the education programs?
Well,
It's up to them.
It's up to them, and I wish them all the best. It kind of felt like you could replace us in less than a week because that's when they started doing it. And like I said, just because people who are there on staff who aren't teachers are being thrown into
Yeah.
doing the job, and it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the
Yeah.
students. So
It creates a mess behind the scenes, for
does.
sure. Iggy, you were the only person in your role. So, I mean, what do you think is being lost now at Midewin due to all these firings?
So I was brought on because my position had actually not been filled for a very long time. I'm not sure exactly how long, but I spent the last 13 months getting a lot of things repaired, fixed, getting a lot of new systems going on. now without me there, everything's going to be lost. It's all going to start falling apart again.
You're the facilities guy.
I'm the facilities guy. And I was
What
supposed to have a
happens?
team, but I was the only one. So I was very busy
My goodness.
there. I was very busy.
So talk long-term impact then.
Who knows? We're hearing about all these forest lands that are being called and taken out. Siobhan has the numbers. But being pessimistic here, but I see Midewin going away.
Yeah.
I see that being taken away. It is not a revenue-generating place. We know that. This is a public land. This is for the people.
So you see it completely going away.
I hate to say it, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Do you
Well,
agree, Siobhan?
I think that's if you take away the people who are working there, and then people can't utilize the land. In the past administration with Trump, they were wanting to drill on public lands. He was passing executive orders to change that it was no longer public land. And there was a executive order on March 1st that was passed that he wanted 280 million acres of timber cut.
Yeah.
And this was primarily on a U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management land. And I don't think all that land, because I was doing a little research, 193 million acres are for the U.S. Forest Service and 58 million Bureau of Land Management. That does not even equal what he wants. And that's not managing the land. That's just cutting a bunch of trees to have a bunch of timber sitting.
Right.
It's not managing.
Abby, I mean, if you had the ears of some of the folks responsible for this, what would you say right now?
I would say that, there are people who have been studying land management, who have been looking at the ways that the Forest Service exists in the first place because our land in this country was being overlogged, the resources were being torn out and not regrown in responsible ways. And the Forest Service took over that responsibility of regulating it. And so I know that regulations are such a bad thing for people who are wanting to make money.
Yeah.
And it makes it really hard to make a whole bunch of money. And I get that, and I feel for that. But, there are other things besides money. There are other things that we need to survive on this planet and that we're going to need as the planet gets harder and harder to survive on. So without the people that are doing that defense and without the people that are, trained to do that kind of regulation and do that kind of science and studies and education and outreach and all of it, it's just, the things that made this country even a little more special than the rest of the world are public lands that that I've heard that people are very jealous of across the world, how much public land we have.
Yeah, but what's the future of all that?
I don't know.
You don't know.
It's completely up in the air.
The things I would say I can't repeat on radio.
Say that again.
The things I would say I can't repeat on radio.
So we'll leave it there. Then we've been speaking with Abbey Hays, Siobhan, Solkowski-Peacy, and Iggy Ignaczak from Midewin National Tallgrass Prairie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Wishing you all the best.
Thank you.